Horizon gents, welcome to CG Reaction. This is how Iran smuggled 777 airplanes, but not half as interesting. 777. Is that a jumbo jet? What is it? Is it bigger than 747? I don't know. I know 787 is like modern version, the literally latest plane, because that's how 8 means that basically, right? 787. 777 is before that. I don't know much about it, but I'm guessing Iran, because of sanctions, can't have these planes and somehow they get it from Boeing. Yeah, amongst shit that is happening in Iran and how, like, I like to know how Iran smuggles things because this concerns Russia as well. Like how they must be doing, right? Russia has its shadow fleet. Iran's gonna have something equivalent just to go around sanctions. This is gonna be interesting. Let's do this one.
In December of last year, Mahan Air, Iran's largest private airline, announced a slate.
Mahan, that just means great in Hindi. And, usually Sanskrit is where all the kind of like languages or most of it devolve into. I'm guessing it's the same meaning in Iran as well. Mahan, great. Yeah.
Of new routes that they would be flying with their brand new fleet of Boeing 777s. These planes represented a big leap forward, a much needed modernization of the country's lackluster aviation industry, and an exciting day for everyone. Everyone except the United States Office of Foreign Assets Control, who were busy freaking out. You see, this was illegal, super illegal. There's not a single person or government on Earth that is allowed to sell Boeing planes to Iran, but somehow Iran just got 5 of them. Doing so was not simple or easy. It took years to acquire and smuggle these planes across Iran's border and add them to Mahan's fleet. But how do you smuggle something as big as 5 wide-bodied, highly monitored aircraft? Well, it's complicated. First, I should explain why Iran needs to be smuggling airplanes at all. The short answer is that the United States said no more airplanes, and they have nuclear weapons, so no more airplanes. The long answer has to do with these. Ears. No, not those kind of ears. These ears. If an object has been manufactured in the United States and could possibly endanger the United States if it fell into the wrong hands, the US will assert control over that object no matter where it is on Earth or who owns it. This applies to things like nuclear materials, computers, and yes, airplanes.
I don't think it's simple as that. I think some of the things that are not just consumer things, that you can't just buy a plane. Companies can. And times like this, government has a say in it because Boeing is part of United States. They file tax under United States government, and if United States government says this is a national security issue, you can't sell to someone, that applies there. If somebody from other country does that, United States can tell the Boeing company never sell to that guy. So there's a risk that it's like indirect threat, right? It's not like like some smaller consumer thing. If somebody just sold that, USA can't really control that, but USA can control big things like planes, jumbo jets, and shit like that, right? Bigger things, right? They can even tell to Apple, like, okay, this is a national security issue. You can't sell iPhone into Iran, and of course, Apple is going to comply to that because Apple doesn't want issue with US government, and it's a national security thing, so it just makes sense.
For the last 46 years, minus a few years in the mid-2010s, the US has prevented anything with these controls from entering Iran. That includes Boeing planes, which are made in the US, and it also includes Airbus planes, which are mostly made in Europe, but generally contain at least 10% American-made parts, and that's enough to make them American-made in the eyes of the US government.
Again, it's not as simple as then, yes, it's 10% American parts. It's not about that. Sanctions, it's about all the European country and American country working as cohesion, as an international unit, and they decide what sanctions are, and they, agree, yeah, this is about right. Iran violated a lot of things, so it's like agreeable thing, like, yeah, you're not selling that, are you? No, we're not selling that either. So it's just like understanding in a way. It's not just about 10% parts.
As far as in-production wide-body passenger aircraft go, that's all the planes. So for decades, airlines in Iran just haven't been able to buy new planes. They can't even buy replacement parts for the planes they do have. And as a result,
I think it was a Russian video about Russia during the invasion, like how Russia screwed because a lot of parts, and I think Iran was too, like a lot of parts usually relied on like Western things, and they can't get it now because of the sanctions. Same thing applies to Iran. Okay, let's just say they smuggled this. How are they going to maintain it, right? And on the modern plane have this like reliant on software technology, like how F-35, like yeah, if you buy F-35 plane, you need American system like GPS and like the entire integrated system. Let's just say iPhone needs iOS and like Apple server. Same way F-35 needs that same thing from America. Isn't that the same thing with like modern planes like this, where they need certain level of network in order to work right? I don't know, I think that's the case, right?
Their fleets are aging, unreliable, and increasingly dangerous. So to keep their aviation industry afloat, smuggling airplanes is kind of their only option. So the question is, how do you smuggle an airplane? Well, fortunately, we have a pretty good timeline of how this all went down. In the case of this most recent heist, the target was here, the Alice Springs Aircraft Boneyard in the middle of Australia's outback. Asian airlines will often retire their aging aircraft out here. It's dry, there's an airport, and it's in the middle of nowhere, and that's kind of all you need to get rid of an airplane. Iran had their sights on a petite fleet of 5 Boeing 777-200s, originally flown by Singapore Airlines before being retired to Alice Springs after about 2 decades of service. In late 2023, these planes were purchased by a US-based company called Ion Aviation. Now, we're going to go ahead and tiptoe around this next point because if this is a real company, I'm going to get sued, and if this is a fake shell company, I'm going to get a fatwa declared on me, but let's just go to their website and see if this seems like an actual American company that has the cash to purchase $50 million worth of commercial aircraft. I'll just scroll here, and that's the whole website. I guess you can decide for yourself. Anyway, this company bought the planes and registered them with the FAA as good old American planes under the ownership of a good old American company. The good old American company then, of course, moved all the planes to Langzhou, China, where they sat for about a year before being sold to a second company, the Madagascar-based Udon Aviation. Unlike Ion, this company didn't even seem to bother making a website or even a logo, so I went ahead and drew a logo for them out of
Udan, that's Hindi word for like flying. Okay, why is this have Hindi names and shit to it? What is language of Madagascar? Does it come from Sanskrit as well? I don't know.
The kindness of my own heart. Now, transferring the planes to Udon also meant changing their country of registration. No longer American planes under the watchful eyes of the FAA, these planes were now the responsibility of the Civil Aviation Authority of Madagascar. And look, we all love Madagascar, but they got bigger things to worry about right now than the whereabouts of 5 airplanes, and that's kind of the point. So these planes, now flying under Udon...
Why does it say Gen Z protest? Like the person left the country after Gen Z protest. Why is the specific? Oh, it's Gen Z. Just say young people. The same thing was happening in Nepal as well. Gen Z protest.
Right now, than the whereabouts of 5 airplanes.
At least there's some positive to this. Gen Zs are actually protesting rather than just like, oh my god, and just like going on TikTok and shit. They're actually actively doing something. That's something, right?
And that's kind of the point. So these planes, now flying under Udon Aviation, were then moved to Siem Reap, Cambodia, another country with a less than stellar reputation for aviation oversight and a way bigger things to worry about. At this point, there's no one to look after these airplanes. This is the aviation equivalent of that kid at school whose parents didn't bother packing him lunch so he'd show up with like a whole jar of Nutella to eat with a spoon. And at the time, you were really jealous because it seemed like he could do whatever he wanted, but now looking back, you realize it was actually kind of sad and the kid probably just wanted parents who paid attention to him.
That is so true, God. That is so true. As a kid, you despised people's freedom, kids' freedom. But now you look back and you know the freedom for small kids is not really a good thing. Only thing that meant is like oversight from their parents, which makes it fucked up. You don't want that as a kid. Like, okay, as a kid, like, yeah, that's awesome. But as a kid, you're not realizing the cocoon and the bubble that you're in, that you think you're protected. That bubble didn't exist for that kid, and that was just Wild West for you. You just didn't realize. You're just like, oh, look at the freedom. He can do anything you want. Okay, now my father's going to come to take me home. Oh, no, he's not. He's probably going to be late. He probably doesn't give a fuck about me. Now I'm eating Nutella with a spoon. You don't think about things like that, but that's just fucked up, isn't it?
It's kind of like that, but with airplanes. So at this point, there was only one step left: get the planes to Iran. This, unfortunately, is still the hardest part. These planes, despite being registered in Madagascar, were still American-made. Selling them directly to Iran would bring down the US sanctions hammer, so there's no way Madagascar could knowingly let that happen. Likewise, Udon Aviation couldn't file a one-way path from Cambodia to Iran to even get the planes over the border because the US only allows Boeing planes to sit in Iran for a maximum of 72 hours, or, sanctions. So to get these planes into Iran, they were going to have to get clever. And by get clever, I mean do crimes. Early in 2025, Udon Aviation filed a flight path to ferry the planes from Siem Reap to Kenya for maintenance. This technically expired in April, but they couldn't get it done by April, so they seemingly just scribbled out April and wrote July instead, and apparently no one noticed. On July 15th, the planes departed in a convoy on this ostensibly legal flight heading northwest, sort of towards Kenya. But as soon as the planes entered Afghanistan's airspace, an infamously poorly monitored bit of sky with air traffic control entirely conducted by the Taliban, each plane's ADS-B transmitter turned off, the planes disappeared, and
I like how they're going straight line from there to Kenya and they're like, Afghanistan. Like, what? How'd that happen? I don't know. I saw a storm there. Storm near India. Yeah, I saw a storm there.
wouldn't you know it, they all landed in Iran. 2 in Chabahar, 2 in Zahedan, and the last one landing in Mashhad. From there, Iran
Whoops. They were stolen by robots. There you go. That's what happened.
could sort of just take them. Udon Aviation wasn't going to make a fuss because it's not real. The US can't sanction Udon Aviation because it's not real. And every other company involved can just throw their hands up in the air and say they got tricked by the company that's not real. And
Yeah, Trump's government would probably go after Madagascar. How dare your company does that? Like, I don't even know what that is. That's a you problem. I think Trump can do that. But this is fall below such a low, problem that Trump's not even going to look at it. But yeah.
matter of just a few months, the planes were absorbed into Mahan Air's fleet and began flying their new routes before the year was up. And everyone lived happily ever after. Now, the logistics of the heist were pretty crazy, but crazy logistics are how the world goes round. From coal mining to commercial fishing to operating a ski resort. If this is the kind of thing that you're
Yeah, well, go to origin video page link from there. Support this channel, Nebula TV. Yeah, it's surprising to me that USA just doesn't either destroy this plane or go after and acquire these planes thinking like, oh, you got this illegally. I guess it's more hassle than it's worth. And there you go. What's gonna happen now when it's like a big ass protest? If it becomes worse and worse, if Ayatollah goes to Russia, run away, is US gonna intervene and just take this plane back or something? I don't know. Again, like with Russia, with his shadow fleet, Iran doing these things, sanctions, people try to find a way to revert around it, right? That's something. Alright, well, if you like my reaction, don't forget to subscribe and I'll see you next time.